Hi, I'm Kevin Don, the Get Fit Guy, and this week I would like to risk alienating 50% of the population by discussing the question, should women be training differently from men? Now, this is a topic that can be touchy with literally no need, because the goal of a coach or of a participant is just to be armed with the best information. Men and women have different needs, and the best training plans take that into account. I'll also note that in this episode, I'll be focusing on cisgender athletes. Now, earlier this week, I read an article on BBC News titled, "Why are so many women footballers, soccer players, for you Americans and Aussies listening, suffering from ACL injuries?" Now, this is something I actually have great insight into. I dated a professional female soccer player who represents her country, played at the Olympics and in the Champions League, and I have another good friend who also represents her country internationally at soccer. So this might be beginning to sound like a soccer-specific episode, but it's not, because the reasons why women get so many non-contact knee injuries playing soccer is the same reason they get them in all sports and even in their training. So let's just be clear firstly, there are major differences between men and women. Some are anatomical, and some, unsurprisingly, are economic, especially in professional sports. First up, anatomical differences. Women give birth. Men don't. This means the pelvis is shaped very differently. This difference in pelvis shape to allow childbirth means that the head of the femur, or the thigh bone, is generally set out wider from the knee than in men. This is called the angle of Q because it forms an angle which is on average 16 degrees larger in women than in men, resulting in uneven loading at the knee. As you can see, this already might be a clue as to why women footballers have more non-contact knee injuries. The next anatomical difference is called the intercondylar notch width. This sounds super fancy, but basically if you drew like a cartoon bone, you'd likely have those two lumps or bumps at the end. Now, in men, those are larger and set further apart, and in women, the notch between the two lumps is narrower, so that the tendons and ligaments in there are in closer proximity. This means they rub against each other and get more easily inflamed. And the smaller size of the actual head of the bones itself means there's less surface area which they can spread impact across. Now, there have been studies into the angle of Q and knee injury, but like a lot of things, it's an underfunded study, very small, and therefore has low statistical weight. But just because a study hasn't been funded into something doesn't mean that it's not the case. It just means no one funded a study. Next up, there's hormonal differences. Now, this might be a surprise to my male listeners, but hey, menstruation has a big effect on the body. Now, at each of the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle, we've got menstruation, a follicular phase, ovulation, and the luteal phase. There are varying levels of different hormones in the bloodstream. Some of these can make ligaments and tendons softer and more pliable. This is more often the case in the luteal phase in the presence of more relaxin. Now, what was interesting to me was that my friend told me that in her top-tier soccer team who play in the Champions League, they take data on the menstrual cycles. However, they don't do anything with the data. They don't know what to do with the data yet. This is pointless. The whole point of acquiring data is to be able to make decisions and take action upon the data. So why wouldn't a professional football team or any other sports team take action upon this data? Well, economics. A professional sports team needs to be successful. A place or two further down a league table means a huge difference in winnings at the end of the season's end. So what were they going to do? Not play 3 or 4 of their best players because they're ovulating and therefore at a high degree of risk for a tendon injury? No. They keep playing them anyway. Furthermore, grass pitches are much easier on the joints and AstroTurf is harder. It's a much less forgiving surface. Cleats can get caught easier, and joints take all that stress and torque. However, grass pitches are more costly to maintain. In Scotland, where I am right now, all women's league matches are played on AstroTurf. To me, this is crazy because we already know women get more non-contact knee injuries, so why are we playing them on Astro? Well, to save money. So what does this mean for you if you aren't a professional sports player? Well, these same factors still apply. If we look at the most common workout methods, HIIT, boot camp, functional fitness, we see a ton of movements like jumping lunges, single leg squats, rebound box jumps, and so on. These are really dynamic movements where knee valgus or knee collapse can occur due to an increased angle of Q. Hormonal differences also still apply. So the question is, would I prescribe my clients agility work, rebound work, or dynamic movements like snatches or cleans during the luteal phase? Unlikely. I'd be much more inclined to go for tempo training in there, to slow them down, and to control things to mitigate risk. Now, I could go into more specifics depending on each sport or training goals, but these are the major points. Now, if you are a woman concerned about your training needs, please do send me an email to getfitguy@quickanddirtytips.com and we can have a chat about it. In the meantime, enjoy the holidays, and I'll be back with more fitness noticings in the new year. Get Fit Guy is a Quick and Dirty Tips podcast. Thanks to the team at Quick and Dirty Tips, Adam Cecil, Morgan Christensen, Holly Hutchins, and Davina Tomlin, and our intern is Cameron Lacey. I'm your host, Kevin Dunn. If you have a question for me, leave me a voicemail at 510-353-3104 or send me an email at getfitguy@quickanddirtytips.com. For more information about the show, visit quickanddirtytips.com or check out the show notes in your podcast app.